Okay, so welcome back to another tutorial on HTML. Specifically, we're looking at CSS. Today, did create a video already as it relates to internal CSS, and we did state that there are three types of CSS. We have our inline CSS, we have our internal CSS, and we have our external CSS. Alright, but today in particular, we'll be looking at inline CSS. But just for review purpose, what does CSS stands for? Now, the acronym CSS. The C stands for cascading. Then we have two S. The first one stands for style, and the other stands for sheets. So therefore, CSS simply means cascading style sheet. Now, CSS is used to format the layout of a web page. So simply when you type a regular HTML code and you want to do some formatting to the layout of the page, you will resort to using your CSS, which stands for cascading style sheet. And it is a case that the CSS that you will use in your web page can either be inline, internal, or external. Now, let's talk about inline CSS in a bit more specific way. Now, an inline CSS is used to apply a unique style to a single HTML element. An inline CSS uses the style attribute of the HTML element. Now, let's look in more detail as to what we are talking about. Now, here you're seeing an example of an inline CSS. Good? And we did state that inline CSS uses the style attribute. And right here, you're seeing the style attribute is being used. But let's get a better understanding of what is really taking place here. So I am going to remove the style from it and observe. Now, over here, you're seeing a line to say it's H1. You already know that H1 is a form of heading, which is the biggest heading, and we have from H1 all the way to H6, with H6 being the smallest, H1 being the biggest. Now, we use a H1 tag right here to display a header to say a blue heading. Now, this line is a simply HTML line. No form of styling is added to it. No form, in other words, no form of formatting is added to it. Now, let's say we want to add some formatting to this line right here, and we're using inline CSS, and you will realize that the CSS code is entered in the same exact line as we have the HTML code in. Now, here we have inside our H1 head tag, opening tag, we have the style attribute, and we say it's going to equal to a color, and the color that we want to use is the color blue. Please note and note carefully. We have style equal open double quotation. We have color colon, which is specifying that we're applying a color, and afterwards we have blue. Blue would be the color of my choice or the color of your choice that you would want to use. So the color here can always change to whatever you want it to be. But the syntax remains the same in terms of the open double quotation, the word color, the colon, and we finish here with a semicolon, and we close open double quotation. Now that we apply this inline style to the HTML line right here, let's see what will happen to this text over here, which is being displayed a blue heading. So now you see that this simple line here changes the color or give format to the color of blue heading. Alright, so that is one example of using inline CSS. Now, it's the same pattern as you can see right here, but here we're using the paragraph tag. And if I should remove the styling from it again, it will take it back to the general tag that you used to. Open P tag, which is open paragraph tag, and here is our closing paragraph tag. And in here is what we want to display on our web page. Now, what if we want to add some styling to it? And meaning inline styling. Note we're using inline styling. It is inline HTML tag. So we're going to go inside of the open paragraph tag after the P, and we are going to insert the inline style, the style that we want to apply. And again, we're having the attribute here, attribute style, and we're having equal, same procedure like above, but this time we are using the color red instead. And there you go, you will see the change done to it. Okay, so just to bring some level of clarity on differentiation between inline CSS and internal CSS. Now, we did cover internal CSS before, but I'm just going to do a quick review of it for you to make the comparison between inline and internal CSS. Now, here we have an example of a internal CSS, and yes, you're still seeing the term style, but just to quickly point out some things. Now, here we have the body, which is just the raw HTML information. Now, if we were using inline CSS, we would come inside of here to add our style to it. But because we are using internal CSS, we put the styling in between the head tag, like you're seeing here, open heading tag and closing heading tag. And of course, we are doing styling, so we use our open style tag right here, and then we are going to make individual styling to our sheet itself. Now, the first styling is being done here to the body, and we are saying that we want a background color to be added to our sheet. So let me just remove this for a bit. So you have to understand what I'm talking about. So you realize we have a plain white background. No background is added to it. Right? So my body is literally flat, white, nothing. Now, if I want to add a background color to it, doing the internal styling, I would insert the word body and open curly bracket, and of course these syntax must always be in place. Body hyphen color colon, simply saying that I want to add a background color to the body of my web page, followed by powder blue, simply saying that my color that I am adding, that I want for my background, should be powder blue. So adding powder blue colon, and I close my curly bracket, and you will see where the background color becomes blue. Same here, I have my H1 tag. I am not using internal, so I don't need to go inside here. I simply call my H1 right here, open curly bracket, and say I want to give it a color, and I say I want to give it the color blue. My paragraph here, I don't need to come inside here because I am not using internal in this case. I'm sorry, inline in this case, I'm using internal. So I simply call P up here, and I say I want to give the color red. So there you will see the difference between inline CSS and internal CSS. And just for reinforcement, for the inline CSS, the styling goes exactly inside the tag inside of the HTML code in the body. And for the internal CSS, the styling goes in between the head tag. That is where you go for your internal CSS. Now remember that you need to practice. It looks pretty simple, and it is pretty simple, but what will make it even more simpler if you make the time to practice these codes. Alright, so until then, have a great day.